Welcome back to Shul Lights. I'm going to try to upgrade this FT03S to Anduril 2. It is a great light, and if you haven't checked out my other video review about the light, I think this is my new, what I call Floody Thrower King. The emitter is huge, and so in this really deep reflector, and it's almost 6,000 out the front lumens. So what you get is you get this really long throw that's really wide. I used to really look for the SBT 90.2 to be a floody thrower, and this is the new emitter that I like. It's called the SFH55 by Astrolux. As I said, there's a little button up here you can click on right now to see that review if you want to see it. But today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to try and update this to Anduril 2. It comes with Anduril 1, which I love Anduril, but I'm also just super used to Anduril 2, and I want to get the standard. So what we're going to do is we're going to try and upgrade it. Now, if you're accustomed to upgrading Hank lights, you know, international outdoor or Noctagon MSR lights, then you already know about this little programmer. So there's a little USB programmer here, and this is bought from Hank. I think it was like 13 bucks. And it comes with a ribbon cable and a pogo adapter on the end. And so typically what you do is you take the head of the light off. Here we go. And there's these little flashing pads that you can see right there. And this pogo adapter that Hank has is his style. And there's a couple other companies that use this style. I think Fireflies does on one of their lights. But a few companies have exposed flashing pads, but not in this orientation. So know that it's mostly Hank that uses this 4-row and 2-row on the top. And what you do is you put these little pins right there while this is plugged into the computer, and then you run your software to flash a hex. And a hex is a firmware file. Now, today I'm going to be talking about the hardware aspect of upgrading this specific light. That's what I'm focusing on. I'm not going to be talking about software. I'm not talking about Hank lights any more than this, just because I need to focus or else this video is going to be enormous. So let's take a look at how this was going to work. Now, I didn't really know what I was going to get into when I first opened up this light, but I started opening it up and I have a little pre-thought of what I'm going to do here. What I was going to do, my original thought, I'll just walk you through it because this might be helpful for other lights, was I was going to take the Hank-specific pogo adapter and ribbon cable off. Then I was going to use this programmer with DuPont cables. I got some in a drawer over there. I'll get them in a second. And I was going to use these DuPont cables attached to this little SOIC clip 8-pin. You can get it from Pomona Electronics, I wrote, and it's part number 5250. And this guy here, if you look at it, once you take the driver out of the light, it's designed so that you can actually clip this right on to the surface mount processor onto the AT-Tiny. Clip it onto the AT-Tiny. You just got to get the orientation right. You got to, because I mean, this is just generic, but you got to make sure that you got pin 1 in the right spot. And then you take all the DuPont cables to here, right? From here to here. It's on the clip. It's on the chip, I mean. And then you flash it. So the driver has to be out of the light. But it turns out that Astrolux is one of the companies that actually does have exposed pads. So let's take the tube off from the head here. Okay. And you'll see that there is a brass retaining ring and a plastic cover, I guess. So that's where you're going to need something like this. If you look on Amazon, this is called a DSLR filter wrench. I'll put a link in the description. These guys are about, 12, 15 bucks. It comes with different tips, so you can change these tips out. So here's the notch tip like Convoy uses. And right now on it, I have the pointy tips, which is what Astrolux is using. So you're going to adjust all this to be the right shape. It spreads in and out. And then you line it up with those 2 holes there like that, those 2 dimples. And then you push down hard and twist. Now, this was easy for me because I've already loosened it, but the first time I twisted it, it was a bear. I was really worried that I was going to skip, meaning, you know, the tool's going to come out of the holes and I was just going to bend either the points on the wrench or the light itself. My advice is, if you're in that situation, two things: operate it with while it's cold. Don't have a lot of hand heat because it actually makes the metal expand. And secondly, push down really firmly. I know it's counterintuitive because you want to get it out, but push down hard as you're twisting, and it really helps you prevent skipping the tool, and you get that ring out. Now, once the ring comes all the way out, you'll see that there's a little plastic. See, this little plastic guy comes off, and voila, we got exposed flashing pads. And even better, turns out that these flashing pads have labels. So awesome. So what we're going to do is I'm going to solder on little tiny hair wires just temporarily. And once I got those wires all soldered on, I'm going to solder onto all of them. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to solder them to DuPont cables and then hook the DuPont cables up in the right order on here. I'll show you that in, next, and then we're going to flash it. So there'll be a cut here, and then these will all be soldered on. See, I said there was going to be a cut and it would be done. This is how my videos get so long. I keep thinking of things to add along the way. But I got these pre-cut, pre-stripped wires, and they're like the width of like a human hair. And I really suggest having something like this around, because this makes this kind of work so much easier. And I just got them in two colors here. I got them in green and red. And I'm going to alternate green and red across the pads, just to make it easier. But you can see these little kind of single strand, very fine pre-cut wires. I got these years ago. I don't even know, where you'd get them today, but I get them at a local electronics shop. All right, I decided I'd even show you how I do the first pad, and then I'll just cut and it'll all be done. First thing I'm gonna do is get some flux here, and I like the paste rather than the liquid, and I'm just going to slather all these pads here with this stuff. Just goop it on. And the reason why is because, we want this to solder on really easily. And if you don't know what flux does, it's acid basically etches the metal. It removes the oxidation so that the solder can bond. All right, so we're going to do that. I am going to pre-tin each one with a tiny, tiny little dab of solder. And then I'm going to solder on the little hair wire. All right, this is always so tough to do on video, so forgive my technique if I look like a dork. Let's see here. Get a little more. I got this perhaps too fine a point on my soldering iron. I might need to switch tips here. Yeah, too fine a point. All right. I switched tips. That tip was not working out for me. Now I've got this little bevel tip here. I put a little tiny amount of solder on it, and now we're going to just get it in there. Sorry, I'm hitting the camera so much. Let me try a little better. There we go. Put a little bit more on. Okay. I think I got it pretty good. Let's take a look. Let's see what we got here. Looks pretty good. Now I'm going to clean that up a little bit. They got flux everywhere. So what I'm going to do, is I'm going to just use a Q-tip and some isopropyl alcohol. I use the 99% electronics version. There we go. Looks better. All right, there you go. So that looks like a pretty good pre-solder job there. Now I gotta just get the little wires on there. So let's take our first wire. Let's take our first wire here, and the stripped parts are way too long. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna trim this down a little bit. There we go. And then I'm gonna pre-tin this wire as well. Make sure you dip the tip of the wire in the flux as well, so that solder wants to go on there. Okay? And it's a very tiny wire, so I can't even tell. It doesn't even look like it's tinned at all, but I'm sure it is. Now I'm going to go ahead and solder onto that first pad there. There we go. You know, I'm going to bend this too. Just bend it to make my life a little easier. Give it a little dog leg there. There we go. So you see I got my first wire on there. That was pretty tricky. Oops, out of focus. There we go. Got my first wire on there. So, you know, basically I just pre-soldered these pads. Then I tinned the wire, touched them together, then pressed together with the iron on top, and they just, you know, melded, and there you go. So that one's on. All right, I'll do the others. All right, so I got them all soldered on, and now what we're going to do is we're going to solder on these little tiny hair wires to the DuPont cables. So I just bought off of Amazon a couple years ago a package of DuPont cables. Kind of looks like this. Just it was a box. Let me pull back a little bit so you can see what's going on. So it's just a box like this, and inside was this package of the 3 types that you're gonna ever use, which is female to female, female to male, and male to male. So here you got the female to female. Here is the male to male, and today we're gonna be using male to female, because I'm going to use these females to plug into this little programmer, right? And I'm going to use these males to solder onto these little wires. So let me go ahead and do that. All right, so I got the DuPont male sides soldered onto the little leads that I have on the little flashing pads there, and you can see the other side is female. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at the labels on the Astrolux. And it's really awesome that the Astrolux has these labels, because it's going to make our job a lot easier. And we're going to line them up with the correct orientation over here. So, for example, if this one, and I'm not looking at the board yet, but if this one was the first one, and 1 is designated as top left here, you can tell there's a little 1 on the board right next to my thumb, then we're just going to attach it like that, okay? Now, let's get the proper pin out. I'm going to throw it on the screen right now, and then I'm going to go ahead and take these leads and put them in the correct order, and the next time you see me, I'll be by my computer ready to flash. All right, I'm in my office here, and I've got the pin out in front of me, and it's on screen for you guys. And you can see that the first pin we're going to wire is actually the MOSI pin. And you see it's this green one right here. So I've got it going to number 1 right there, because that's what it is on the diagram. And then number 2 is actually a 5 volts. And again, if we look at the labels here, 5 volts, it says VVC right there. It's the second one over. So here it is, the VVC. And I'm going to stick that in number 2 right here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and connect all these, and then we'll flash it. Okay, I have them all wired up. A couple things I wanted to point out before we plug it into the computer. One is, notice that I went, you know, red, green when possible on these little pads. That made my life a lot easier, because when I was reading these, I could just see whether it was red or green and then find that cable a lot easier. Now, it's not to say that you couldn't use all the same color, But just know that if you make a mistake, if you do the pinout wrong, you could fry your driver or just be at least very confused. So another thing I wanted to point out was that there are 12 pins on this female part right here, but you're only going to use 6 of them. And a lot of them are just ground over and over and over. So once you got the ground on the light here plugged into one of the grounds, you're good to go. All the grounds are the same. All right, here you can see that I've got the flashlight hooked up to the programmer, and the program is hooked up into my dock where my USB port is. Okay, and I got a red light on it, so that indicates that everything is working there. Now on screen here, and I'm using a Mac, I have my terminal open, and I just wanted to point out that there's a really great document on how to flash Anduril on macOS, made by Oweban, and I'll link that in my description as well. And this particular light, and I have scrolled down a little bit because I already have AVRDude installed from previous flashing, but I got a hex too, and I'll actually make a link available for the hex for this light as well because Toykeeper doesn't have it in her repository. But anyways, I'm going to use this line right here for that ATtiny chip, and I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. There it is. That's the line, and I'm not really going to go over this in too much detail because, again, you know, this is the kind of thing that you're going to have to sort out for yourself because you're going to have to get this stuff installed, and, you know, the hex might be anywhere on your drive. I can't give you the syntax exactly, but I'll hit return, and if everything's working properly, you should see a scroll that looks just like this. It'll say that it's read the file, it'll say that it's written the file, and then it's going to reread the file from the light. And once it's verified and everything's verified and it says that, then we're good to go. All you have to do is unplug this and take it back to the soldering iron and unsolder all this and clean it up. So I unsoldered all these leads, and I'll store these for later flashing. I just wanted to point out how you'd clean this up. So again, we're going to get a little bit of flux and apply it to the pads here. Okay, so let me get a little bit on this wire here. And I will put this all along here. Now, I mean, you probably could leave these pre-tinned, these pads. I'm just being very, very anal here. I'm just going to clear it up. And then you want to get some soldering wick. I got some soldering wick here. Let me cut off the end that I've already used. Okay, cut it off, and there we go. Okay, and now, so this is the stuff that I'm using. And you take this copper wick and you just lay it across and act like you're soldering, and you take the stuff up. So I'll do the first one here on camera like that. You press down and then you pull up. And you see that it's nice, and that little blob is gone. It's going to look silver now instead of gold because there is a layer of solder on top of the gold, and that's just normal. But I'm going to clean these all up. All right, so I got them all desoldered, and I just wanted to show you this cool little alcohol container I have. It will flip up, and you kind of push down a couple times, and the alcohol, you can see it squirts out into this little reservoir. So I can just take my Q-tip and then go like this. And just get a little more in here. There we go. That is nice. Look at that, nice and clean. All right, so now we just reassemble and turn the light on. Okay, so I reassembled the inside. I got the tube and the cap on. The light has turned on, so all's well, and the light works. And now we're gonna go 15 taps or more to get to the version check. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I got 2 flashes, a little bip, and 2 flashes. So there you go. Version 2. All right, successful. I hope that was helpful, and you could really apply the techniques that I just shown you to any light that has Anduril. So I did not show how to use the SOIC clip, but the process is exactly the same. It's just that you have to remove the driver. So if there's flash pads available like in this light, then that's much easier because you don't have to pull the driver out. But otherwise, pulling the driver out usually isn't too bad, and then you can just do it this way. So there you go. Any Anduril light can be upgraded. Doesn't matter the manufacturer. Just follow these instructions. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.